The grand observation deck of Sanctum Prime stretched before Major Zara Kesh, its crystalline viewport revealing the spiral arms of the galaxy like a cosmic painting. The Galactic Empire's capital station had been constructed at the perfect vantage point, a place where the Empire's rulers could literally watch over their domain of 10,000 worlds. Zara adjusted her uniform's high collar, the stiff fabric emblazoned with the 8-pointed star of the border fleet. "Major Kesh, your siege mark scouts are prepared for departure," announced the deck officer, his voice echoing across the polished obsidian floor. Zara nodded curtly. "Very good. And the new sensor array modifications?" "Installed as per Engineer Loren's specifications. Your patrol vessels now have 30% extended range on quantum fluctuation detection." A smile tugged at this corner of Zara's mouth. The border had been quiet for nearly 2 cycles since the frontier wars had ended with the Empire's decisive victory. Still, Commander Aurek insisted on maintaining vigilance, upgrading their technology constantly. Better safe than sorry, as the ancient saying went. She turned from the viewport and strode toward the command lift. Siegemark Squadron was the Empire's most elite border reconnaissance unit, and she had earned her position through 15 years of exemplary service. The lift doors sealed with a soft hiss, and Zara descended toward the docking bay, mentally reviewing her mission parameters. Standard border patrol, monitor the frontier sectors adjacent to the Alaris system. Report any anomalies. Simple enough, yet vital to Imperial security. The Emperor himself had emphasized the importance of these patrols during the last military council. "Major!" a voice called as she entered the bustling docking bay. Engineer Loren, his gaunt face always seemingly caught between excitement and anxiety, hurried toward her. "I've added a little something extra to your flagship. I wasn't aware we were scheduled for additional modifications," Zara replied, raising an eyebrow. Loren's eyes gleamed. "This isn't official yet. It's a prototype tachyon burst communicator. If you encounter anything unusual, it'll allow you to send a compressed data packet back to Sanctum Prime almost instantaneously." "Almost?" "Well, 17 seconds. Which is miraculous considering the distance." Zara considered this. Commander Aurek would normally insist on approving all equipment changes, but Loren's innovations had saved lives before. "Very well. Let's hope we won't need it." The engineer beamed, clearly pleased. "Safe travels. Major." Siegemark Squadron consisted of 5 ships, sleek, obsidian vessels designed for stealth and speed rather than confrontation. As Zara boarded her flagship, the Vigilant, her second-in-command, Lieutenant Vex, stood at attention. "All systems operational. Major, we're ready to depart on your command." "Excellent. Set course for the outer marker of Sector 7 Aleph, standard patrol formation." As the squadron detached from Sanctum Prime, Zara settled into her command chair. The Empire had enjoyed unprecedented peace for 2 years, though peace was perhaps a generous term. The border world still simmered with unrest, and pirate groups occasionally tested the Empire's defenses, but nothing organized, nothing that posed a genuine threat. The Imperial propaganda networks constantly reminded citizens of their technological superiority, their unmatched military might. The recent victory over the Frontier Alliance had only reinforced this narrative. The Empire was invincible, eternal. Zara knew better than to fully embrace such absolute confidence. History taught that empires fell when they became complacent, when they believed too deeply in their own mythology. That's why she valued Commander Aurek's cautious approach, even when others on the military council dismissed it as paranoia. The journey to the border took 3 standard days, during which Zara drilled her crew relentlessly on emergency protocols and reconnaissance procedures. By the time they reached Sector 7 Aleph, the Vigilance crew was operating with machine-like efficiency. "Begin standard sweep pattern," Zara ordered as they approached the boundary marker. "Passive sensors only for the first 6 hours." The first 2 days of patrol yielded nothing unusual. A few merchant vessels traveling established routes, a scientific expedition studying a peculiar nebula formation, and the occasional lonely mining operation extracting resources from asteroid fields. Routine, almost boring. On the 3rd day, everything changed. "Major!" The sensor officer's voice cracked with tension. "I'm detecting an enormous energy signature entering reception range." Zara moved swiftly to the sensor station. "Define enormous." The officer's fingers danced across the console. "It's massive. Initial readings suggest at least 250 distinct vessels. And they're not ours." A chill ran down Zara's spine. "Configuration? Unknown. They're maintaining perfect formation, but their energy signatures don't match anything in our database. Not Imperial Navy, not Frontier Alliance remnants, not known pirate collectives." Zara straightened. "Send a compressed data packet to command using Lauren's new communicator. Priority Alpha. Include all sensor readings." "Yes, Major." "And maintain distance. I want visual confirmation without alerting them to our presence." As the data transmitted back to Sanctum Prime, Zara studied the approaching formation. There was something eerily perfect about their arrangement, too perfect for a ragtag group of marauders. This was disciplined, purposeful. "Magnification at maximum," reported the tactical officer. Still difficult to make out details, but they appeared to be civilian vessels. "Civilian?" Zara frowned. "Check again." "Confirming, Major. They have civilian configurations, but they're modified, heavily." Before Zara could process this information, her communication officer interrupted. "Incoming transmission from Sanctum Prime. Commander Aurek is requesting immediate communication." The commander's holographic image materialized on the bridge, his weathered face set in grim lines. "Major Kesh, your data packet has caused quite a stir here. The border fleet is being mobilized as we speak." "Sir, we're still gathering information. These vessels appear to be civilian in nature, but significantly modified." Aurek's expression darkened. "Civilian vessels don't travel in battle formations. Major, we're dealing with something unprecedented. I need you to gather more intelligence without engaging. The main fleet will arrive in approximately 48 hours. "Understood, Commander." "And Kesh," Aurek added, his voice dropping. "The Emperor himself has been briefed on this situation. The entire Empire is watching. Do not fail." As the transmission ended, Zara turned to her crew. "Lieutenant Vex, prepare our most inconspicuous shuttle. We're going to get a closer look." "That's extremely risky." "Major," Vex protested, "which is why I'll be leading the mission personally." Zara replied, "Have the shuttle outfitted to appear as a civilian transport. If questioned, we're independent traders surveying potential mining sites." 6 hours later, Zara found herself piloting the disguised shuttle toward the mysterious Armada, accompanied by Vex and 2 of her most experienced officers. As they approached, the true scale of the formation became apparent. "By the Empire," whispered Vex, "there must be 300 ships." Zara's eyes narrowed as she studied the vessels. Passenger liners converted into carriers, mining ships retrofitted with what appeared to be weapon mounts, research vessels equipped with... I can't even identify some of these modifications. Who would do this, and why? Before Zara could answer, A warning alarm blared. "We're being scanned," she announced, checking her instruments. "Multiple targeting systems locked onto us." "They know we're not civilian," Vex said, tension evident in his voice. "Evasive maneuvers," Zara ordered, banking the shuttle sharply away from the Armada. "Prepare to—" A blinding flash erupted from the nearest vessel, followed by a concussive wave that sent the shuttle tumbling. Alarms screamed throughout the cabin as systems failed. "Engine 3 is down," reported one of the officers. "Stabilizers failing." Zara fought with the controls, trying to regain some semblance of stability. "Send emergency signal to the Vigilant. We need extraction." "Communications are jammed," Vex reported grimly. They knew exactly what to target. Through the view screen, Zara watched as smaller craft deployed from the larger vessels, hundreds of them, swarming like insects. Not fighter craft as she expected, but what appeared to be industrial drones, moving with coordinated precision. "They're not attacking," she observed, puzzled. "They're forming a screen between us and the Armada." "Buying time," Vex suggested. "But for what?" The answer came moments later as the massive formation began to shift, individual vessels changing position with practiced efficiency. What had been a tight formation now expanded, creating the illusion of an even larger force. "They're deploying decoys," Zara realized. Each ship is broadcasting multiple phantom signatures to appear as a small fleet unto itself. One of the officers looked up from his scanner. "Major, I'm detecting the Vigilant approaching at maximum speed." "They're coming to rescue us," Vex said. Zara shook her head. "No, they're walking into a trap. These people, whoever they are, they knew we'd send a recon team. They wanted to draw out our main vessel." She punched emergency power to the remaining engines. "We need to intercept the Vigilant before it enters drone range." The damaged shuttle lurched forward, straining against its injuries as Zara pushed it to its limits. Through skill and sheer determination, they managed to rendezvous with the Vigilant moments before it would have entered the Armada's defensive perimeter. Back aboard her flagship, Zara immediately ordered a strategic withdrawal to a safer distance. "Maintain visual contact, but stay beyond their apparent weapons range," she instructed. "Major," her tactical officer called, "you need to see this." On the main view screen, the Armada's formation had changed again. Several of the larger vessels were now moving toward the Alaris 4 system, a mineral-rich region with several Imperial mining outposts. "They're splitting their forces," Vex observed. "No," Zara countered, watching the precision of their movements. "This is deliberate. They want us to divide our response." She opened a channel to Sanctum Prime, finding Commander Arek already waiting for her report. "They attacked your shuttle?" Arek asked, his brow furrowed with concern. "A warning shot, sir. They could have destroyed us, but chose not to. These aren't typical raiders or pirates. Their tactics are sophisticated, coordinated." Arek nodded grimly. "The main fleet has been mobilized. 20 capital ships, including 3 Dreadnought-class vessels, will arrive within 36 hours. Until then, continue observation, but do not engage unless absolutely necessary." "Sir, they're moving toward Alaris 4. There are Imperial citizens on those mining stations." "I'm aware, Major. We're sending evacuation orders now, but those outposts are minimally staffed. The priority is understanding what we're facing before committing to full engagement." After the transmission ended, Zara ordered her squadron to shadow the vessels headed toward Alaris 4 while maintaining a safe distance. What they witnessed over the next 12 hours defied conventional military logic. The mysterious fleet entered the Alaris system, not with weapons blazing, but with what appeared to be a carefully orchestrated mining operation. Their industrial drones began systematically harvesting asteroids, processing them into rough-hewn defensive barriers that created a makeshift fortification around their larger vessels. "They're not attacking the mining stations," reported Vex, puzzlement evident in his voice. "They're establishing a defensive position using the system's resources." Zara watched the operation with growing unease. This isn't random. They knew exactly where to go, what resources were available. They've studied us, prepared for this. "Oh, but who are they?" asked one of her officers. "That's what we need to find out," Zara replied. "And quickly, before the main fleet arrives and potentially triggers a conflict we don't fully understand." She turned to her communications officer. "Prepare a tight beam transmission to the lead vessel. Let's see if they're willing to talk." The response came almost immediately, not in words, but in action. One of the modified research vessels deployed what appeared to be a communication buoy. It drifted slowly toward the Vigilant, maintaining a non-threatening trajectory. "Scan it," Zara ordered. "No explosives detected," reported the tactical officer. "It appears to be a genuine communication device, but it's using encryption protocols I've never seen before." Engineer Lauren, who had insisted on joining the border patrol at the last minute, stepped forward. "Allow me, Major. This is fascinating technology." For the next hour, Lauren worked feverishly to decode the transmission. Finally, he looked up, his face pale. "Major, I've broken part of their encryption. It's not what we expected." "Explain," Zara demanded. "The language base is ancient, but recognizable. He hesitated. "It's human." A stunned silence fell over the bridge. "Impossible," Vex finally said. "Humans are a primitive species from a backwater world. They barely have interplanetary travel, let alone the capacity for this kind of fleet." Lauren shook his head. "The linguistic markers are unmistakable. And there's more. I've decrypted a partial message. They're requesting non-aggressive contact." Zara considered this development carefully. Humans were indeed known to the Empire, but as Vex had said, they were considered a minor species, hardly worth diplomatic consideration. Their homeworld, Earth, was far beyond the Empire's current borders, in a region of space considered resource-poor and strategically insignificant. "Perhaps they've stolen this technology," suggested another officer. "Humans are known to be adaptable, if nothing else." Whatever the case, Zara decided, we need more information before the main fleet arrives. Prepare a response indicating our willingness to establish communication. The next 12 hours brought more surprises. The human fleet, if that's truly what it was, continued its defensive preparations while simultaneously extending communication attempts. They transmitted basic identification protocols, navigation charts showing their journey's origin, and what appeared to be historical records. Lauren worked continuously to translate and interpret the data. "Major, according to these records, Earth suffered some kind of ecological catastrophe approximately 50 years ago. These aren't military vessels, they're arcs, generation ships carrying their population, technology, cultural records, everything they could salvage." "A refugee fleet?" Zara couldn't hide her skepticism. "Armed and organized like a military force?" "Perhaps both," Lauren suggested. "Consider how dangerous deep space is. If you were transporting your entire civilization across unknown regions, wouldn't you arm yourself as best you could?" Before Zara could fully process this information, a priority alert sounded. "Main fleet has arrived at the outer marker," announced her communications officer. "Commander Aurek is ordering all reconnaissance vessels to fall back and join the main battle group." Zara hesitated. The information they'd gathered painted a very different picture than what Command believed they were facing. If the main fleet engaged with full force against what was essentially a refugee convoy, however well armed. "Send all our findings to Commander Aurek immediately," she ordered. "Emphasize the evidence suggesting these are human refugees, not an invasion force." "Will he believe it?" Vex asked quietly. "I don't know," Zara admitted, "but we have to try." The main fleet's arrival changed the dynamic dramatically. 20 capital ships, including the massive dreadnoughts with their planet-cracking weaponry, formed an imposing wall of imperial might. Commander Aurek's flagship, the Imperator, dwarfed even these behemoths. Summoned aboard the Imperator, Zara found herself in a war council with the fleet's senior officers. Aurek stood before a holographic display of the human armada, his expression stern. "Major Kesh, your reports suggest we may be dealing with human refugees rather than a hostile force. However, the military council remains unconvinced." One of the dreadnought captains snorted derisively. "Humans building and operating a fleet of this sophistication? Preposterous. We're clearly dealing with a pirate coalition using stolen or purchased technology." "With respect, Captain," Zara countered, "the evidence suggests otherwise. The communication protocols, the historical records, could all be fabricated," interrupted another officer. "A clever ruse to delay our response while they fortify their position." Aurek raised a hand, silencing the debate. "What matters is that we have an unidentified, heavily armed force on our border. Whether they're humans, pirates, or something else entirely, they represent a potential threat that must be addressed." He turned to Zara. "Major, you've had the most direct contact with them. What is your assessment of their capabilities?" Zara chose her words carefully. "They are technologically sophisticated, though their vessels appear to be converted civilian ships rather than purpose-built warcraft. Their tactics emphasize defense over aggression, and they've demonstrated remarkable resource utilization. They could have destroyed my shuttle, but chose not to. I believe they're trying to avoid conflict." "Or lulling us into complacency before striking," suggested one of the officers. Aurek studied the holographic display thoughtfully. "We cannot afford to make assumptions either way. The Emperor has authorized me to take whatever action I deem necessary to neutralize any threat to imperial security." He turned to his assembled officers. "Prepare the fleet for engagement. We will approach in attack formation, but hold fire unless provoked. I want their defensive capabilities tested. Launch a probe wing to assess their response." As the officers dispersed to carry out their orders, Aurek held Zara back. "Major, you'll remain on the Imperator for this operation. Your knowledge of their behavior may prove valuable." "Commander," Zara said quietly, "if these truly are human refugees, attacking them would be—" "I'm not planning to slaughter refugees." "Major," Aurek interrupted, his voice hardening, "but neither will I risk Imperial lives on unverified claims. We will proceed with caution, but we will proceed." The Imperial probes, unmanned craft designed to record tactical data, launched toward the human fleet hours later. Zara watched from the Imperator's bridge as the humans responded, deploying their industrial drones in defensive formations rather than attacking directly. "Fascinating," murmured Aurek. "They're creating debris fields to disrupt our probe's sensors rather than destroying them outright." "Non-lethal deterrence," Zara observed, consistent with a defensive posture. The probe data streamed back, revealing more details about the human fleet's capabilities. Their weapons were indeed formidable, not because they were particularly advanced, but because they were unpredictable. Mining lasers repurposed as cutting beams, industrial fabricators modified to launch projectiles. Research equipment adapted for electronic warfare. They've weaponized civilian technology in ways our defense systems aren't calibrated to counter, explained the Imperator's tactical officer. Individually, none of these would pose a significant threat, but the sheer variety and number create tactical challenges. Aurek absorbed this information, his expression unreadable. Prepare the fleet for full engagement. Target their largest vessels first. Remove their command structure, and the rest will falter. Sir, Zara interjected, may I suggest one final attempt at communication before we commit? We now have enough of their language decoded to send a clear message. Aurek hesitated, then nodded curtly. Very well, Major. One attempt. Make it count. Zara worked with the communications team to craft a message that was both authoritative and non-threatening, identifying themselves as Imperial representatives and requesting clarification of the fleet's intentions. The response came quickly. A transmission request for direct communication. They're asking for visual contact, reported the communications officer. Aurek straightened his uniform. Put it through on the main screen. Let's see who or what we're dealing with. The screen flickered, and a face appeared, unmistakably human. Female, with dark skin and close-cropped silver hair. She wore what appeared to be a uniform, though not one recognized by Imperial databases. This is Colonel Elena Morozova of the Earth Exodus Coalition, she announced, her voice clear and confident despite the obvious tension. To whom am I speaking? Aurek stepped forwards. Commander Aurek of the Imperial Border Fleet, you have entered Imperial territory with an armed force without authorization. Explain your presence and intentions immediately. Colonel Morozova's expression remained composed. Commander, we are a refugee fleet seeking habitable worlds for settlement. Earth, our homeworld, has become increasingly uninhabitable due to ecological collapse. We come in peace, though we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. A refugee fleet with military-grade modifications and tactical formation capability? Aurek's skepticism was evident. You must understand our concern. We've traversed 17 light-years of uncharted, often hostile space to reach this point. Morozova replied, We lost 11 ships to various threats along the way. The modifications you've observed were born of necessity, not aggression. And your interest in the Alaris system? Resources, Commander. Our fleet requires constant maintenance and replenishment. We selected Alaris because preliminary scans indicated abundant mineral deposits in uninhabited regions. Aurek's eyes narrowed. You've studied our territory extensively. We study everything in our path. Commander, knowledge is survival. As the exchange continued, Zara studied the human leader carefully. There was something in her demeanor, a weariness beneath the strength, a determination born of desperate circumstances rather than conquest. Meanwhile, Imperial analysts were processing the transmission, confirming that Morozova was indeed human and that the background visible behind her matched the interior configuration of one of the larger vessels they'd observed. What guarantee can you provide that your presence doesn't herald a larger human expansion into Imperial space? Aurek demanded. Morozova's expression hardened slightly. Commander, we seek only survival, not conquest. Our fleet represents nearly 40% of Earth's remaining population. We need stability, not conflict. 40%? Zara couldn't help interrupting. How many individuals? Approximately 12 million souls, Morozova answered, her gaze shifting to Zara. Men, women, children, families, scientists, artists, farmers, everything we could save. A murmur ran through the Imperator's bridge crew. 12 million was a small population by Imperial standards, a minor colony world at best, yet they had marshaled resources and determination enough to cross vast distances of space. Aurek remained unmoved. Your claims are noted, Colonel, but unverified. As a precautionary measure, I must insist that your fleet withdraw from Imperial territory while diplomatic channels are established. Commander, Morozova replied, her voice level but firm. Our ships cannot simply withdraw. Many are operating at capacity just to maintain life support. We've been traveling for nearly 7 years. Our people need solid ground, resources, stability. That is not my concern. Then perhaps it should be, Morozova countered. We don't seek charity. Commander, we offer exchange, technology, knowledge, labor. We built these ships. We can help build for your empire as well. The transmission was suddenly interrupted by an urgent alert. Commander, called the tactical officer. Multiple vessels from the human fleet are changing position. The holographic display showed several of the larger ships moving away from their defensive formation, appearing to head deeper into Imperial territory. Interceptors launch now, Aurek ordered. All vessels prepare for engagement. Wait, Zara studied the display intently. They're not advancing. They're rotating to protect their civilian ships. Look at the heat signatures. Those vessels contain their highest life form concentrations. Aurek hesitated, torn between military protocol and Zara's insight. Before he could respond, Colonel Morozova's transmission reconnected. Commander, please, she said, urgency now evident in her voice. What you're seeing is a protective maneuver only. We detected your interceptors powering up and moved to shield our most vulnerable ships. We have over 3 million children aboard this fleet. The bridge fell silent. Even the most hardened Imperial officers felt the weight of that statement. Aurek's jaw tightened. Hold interceptors at ready position, he ordered finally. Do not launch unless I give the command. He turned back to the screen. Colonel Morozova, I will require proof of your claims. I propose a neutral meeting ground where representatives from both sides can convene. Agreed, Morozova replied without hesitation. Name the location. There is a space station at the edge of the Alaris system, a former mining coordination center, now automated. My officers will transmit the coordinates. We'll be there. I suggest small delegations, perhaps 3 representatives each. Aurek nodded curtly. Acceptable. 12 hours from now. As the transmission ended, he turned to Zara. Major Kesh, you will accompany me to this meeting. Your insights regarding these humans have proven valuable thus far. Yes, Commander. Zara hesitated. May I suggest bringing Engineer Loran as our third? His technical expertise could help verify their claims about their vessel's capabilities. Aurek considered this, then nodded. A wise choice. Have him prepare a comprehensive analysis of what we've observed so far. The 12 hours before the meeting were tense. The Imperial fleet maintained its position, weapons ready, but not actively targeting the human vessels. The humans, for their part, continued their defensive posture while transmitting additional data about their journey and their needs. Loran worked feverishly to analyze everything, occasionally exclaiming in surprise or admiration at particular technical solutions the humans had implemented. Their adaptability is remarkable, he told Zara as they prepared to depart for the meeting. They've taken technology designed for entirely different purposes and reconfigured it with minimal resources. Some of these innovations are, well, I'd never have thought of approaching problems this way. Is that admiration I hear? Engineer, Zara asked with a slight smile. Loran looked slightly embarrassed. Professional curiosity. Major, nothing more. The Imperial shuttle departed with Commander Aurek, Major Kesh, and Engineer Loran aboard, heading for the designated meeting point. A similar craft launched from the human fleet, presumably carrying Colonel Morozova and her chosen representatives. The abandoned mining station hung in space like a forgotten relic, a skeletal structure of metal and composite materials, still operational, but devoid of permanent inhabitants. Its central meeting chamber had been hastily prepared by automated systems, creating a stark but functional environment for the historic encounter. Zara felt the weight of the moment as their shuttle docked. This meeting could determine not only the fate of 12 million humans, but potentially the future relationship between their species and the Empire. Commander Aurek led their delegation into the chamber, his posture rigid with military discipline. Zara and Loran followed closely behind, both keenly observant. The human delegation arrived moments later. Colonel Morozova entered first, taller than she had appeared in the transmission, with a dignified bearing that commanded respect despite her simple uniform. Behind her came two others, an older man with intricate mechanical augmentations visible on his hands and forearms, and a younger woman whose alert eyes missed nothing. Commander Aurek. Morozova nodded respectfully. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Colonel, Aurek acknowledged. Allow me to introduce Major Zara Kesh of our Border Fleet Reconnaissance Division and Engineer Loran, our technical specialist. A pleasure, Morozova replied. With me are Dr. Marcus Way, our Chief Science Officer, and Lieutenant Sofia Ivanova, my second-in-command. The formal introductions complete. They seated themselves at the station's conference table, a simple metal slab that had once served the mining operations administrators. Let's address the primary issue. Aurek began without preamble. Your fleet's presence represents an unprecedented situation for the Empire. While we acknowledge your claims of refugee status, we require verification. Morozova nodded. Of course. Dr. Way has prepared a comprehensive data package, our journey logs, population records, resource inventories, and technical specifications of our vessels. The scientist stepped forward, placing a data module on the table. Everything is here, including our genetic diversity matrices and terraforming capabilities. We have nothing to hide. Loran picked up the module, examining it with professional interest before connecting it to his analysis tablet. As data began streaming across his screen, his eyebrows rose incrementally. This is extensive, he murmured. 7 years of desperate innovation tends to generate considerable documentation. Dr. Way replied with a hint of dry humor. Aurek remained focused on Morozova. Assuming your data proves legitimate, what exactly are you proposing? You must understand that the Empire cannot simply allow an armed fleet to establish itself within our territory. We propose a settlement agreement, Morozova said directly. We need habitable space, preferably a planetary system with diverse resources. In exchange, we offer technological partnership. As Dr. Way mentioned, we've developed significant terraforming capabilities out of necessity. We can help develop worlds the Empire might consider marginal. You offer technology in exchange for territory. Aurek's tone was skeptical. The Empire already possesses advanced terraforming capabilities. Dr. Way cleared his throat. With respect, Commander, our approaches differ significantly from yours. Necessity breeds innovation in unexpected directions. For instance, our microbial acceleration techniques could reduce standard terraforming timelines by approximately 63%. Loran looked up sharply from his tablet. That would be a significant advancement. We had no choice. Way replied simply, we couldn't wait centuries for new homes to become habitable. Zara watched the exchange with growing interest. The humans weren't begging. They were negotiating from a position of having something valuable to offer. It was not what anyone had expected. There's also the matter of your fleet's armaments. Aurek continued. The military council will never approve settlement while you maintain what amounts to a private army within imperial borders. Morozova nodded, understanding. A reasonable concern. We propose phased disarmament as settlement progresses. As our people establish ground bases, the need for fleet protection diminishes. Many of our ships can be repurposed for civilian functions or dismantled for materials. And you would accept imperial oversight of this process. Within reasonable parameters. Yes, we seek integration, not isolation. Our people need stability after years of uncertainty. As the negotiations continued, Zara found herself increasingly convinced of the humans' sincerity. Their proposals were practical, their concessions reasonable, their documentation thorough. Most tellingly, perhaps, was their willingness to be transparent about both their capabilities and their vulnerabilities. After several hours of discussion, Aurek called for a brief recess, leading the imperial delegation to a private chamber for consultation. Your assessment? He asked once they were alone. Lauren spoke first, his expression animated. Their technical achievements are remarkable. Commander, some of their adaptations could be genuinely valuable to the Empire. Their fusion efficiency alone exceeds our standard models by 22%. Major Kesh, Aurek turned to Zara. She considered her words carefully. I believe they are exactly what they claim to be, refugees seeking survival, not conquerors seeking dominion. Their military capabilities are impressive given their constraints, but pale in comparison to our regular forces. They pose no strategic threat to the Empire. Aurek paced the small chamber, hands clasped behind his back. The military council expected me to report on a hostile force neutralized or driven back. Instead, I'll be presenting a proposal for settlement and technological exchange. Many will oppose this simply on principle. With respect, Commander, Zara ventured, principles that prevent us from recognizing valuable opportunities may need reconsideration. Aurek stopped pacing, giving her a long, evaluating look. You've developed quite an advocacy for these humans. Major, I advocate for the Empire's interests, sir. Zara replied evenly. And I believe those interests may be better served by alliance than confrontation in this instance. After a moment, Aurek nodded. Perhaps you're right. Engineer Lauren, prepare a detailed analysis of the technological benefits they're offering. Major Kesh, draft a preliminary security protocol for overseeing their settlement and disarmament. Let's see if we can make this palatable to the Council. When they returned to the conference room, the atmosphere had subtly shifted. The initial tension had given way to cautious optimism as both delegations recognized the potential for mutual benefit. Colonel, Aurek began, we're prepared to recommend a conditional settlement agreement to our superiors, pending verification of your technical offerings and acceptance of security protocols. Morozova's relief was visible, though restrained. Thank you, Commander. That's all we ask, a fair assessment of our proposal. I must caution you that approval is not guaranteed. There will be significant opposition from certain factions within the Empire. We understand. Political complexity is not unique to your civilization. The meeting concluded with the establishment of communication protocols and arrangements for a larger delegation from the human fleet to visit Sanctum Prime for formal negotiations, as they prepared to return to their respective vessels. Morozova approached Zara. Major Kesh, she said quietly, I sense you played a significant role in today's outcome. Thank you for your open-mindedness. Zara inclined her head slightly. I simply reported what I observed. Colonel, your people's determination is... Impressive. A necessity, Morozova replied with a small smile. The greatest teacher of all. The journey back to the Imperator was considerably less tense than the outbound flight had been. Engineer Lauren couldn't contain his excitement about the human technological innovations, while Aurek remained thoughtful, clearly considering the political ramifications of his decision. The Council will want a full briefing immediately, he said as they approached the flagship. Major Kesh, you'll present the reconnaissance findings. Engineer Lauren, prepare to discuss the technological aspects. I'll handle the strategic implications. Yes, Commander. They responded in unison. The Military Council's response was predictably mixed. The transmission chamber aboard the Imperator filled with holographic projections of the Empire's highest-ranking military leaders, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Commander Aurek, began Grand Admiral Nexus, the Council's senior member, your report suggests you advocate for allowing this human fleet to establish a permanent presence within Imperial territory. Explain your reasoning. Aurek stood at rigid attention. Grand Admiral, after thorough investigation, we've determined that these humans represent a potential asset rather than a threat. Their technological innovations, particularly in terraforming and resource utilization, could provide significant benefits to the Empire. And we're to take their word for this, challenged General Dravan, a notorious hardliner. 12 million aliens with a heavily armed fleet, and you propose we welcome them with open arms. Not at all, General, Aurek replied evenly. I propose we welcome them with open eyes and appropriate precautions. Major Kesh has developed a comprehensive security protocol for their settlement process. Zara stepped forward, presenting her findings with precision and confidence. She outlined the humans' capabilities, their limitations, and most importantly, their potential value as Imperial subjects rather than adversaries. Their fleet is impressive given their constraints, she concluded, but poses no strategic threat to Imperial security. Their technical knowledge, however, represents a significant resource we would be remiss to squander. Engineer Lauren followed with his assessment of the human technological offerings, his enthusiasm evident despite his attempts at professional detachment. The Council members listened with varying degrees of interest, occasionally interrupting with questions or challenges. As the briefing concluded, Grand Admiral Nexus leaned forward, his holographic image appearing to study each of them intently. You've presented a compelling case, Commander. However, this decision extends beyond military considerations. The Emperor himself will need to be consulted. Of course, Grand Admiral, Aurek acknowledged. In the interim, I request authorization to proceed with preliminary settlement discussions. The human fleet's resources are limited. Their situation grows more precarious with each passing day. After a brief, hushed consultation among the Council members, Nexus nodded. Granted, Commander. You may proceed with preliminary discussions while we consult with the Imperial Court. However, make no binding commitments without explicit authorization. Understood, Grand Admiral. As the transmission ended, Aurek turned to Zara and Lauren. That went better than expected. Now comes the real challenge, translating theoretical goodwill into practical action. Over the following weeks, the relationship between the Imperial fleet and the human Armada evolved from tense standoff to cautious collaboration. Under Zara's supervision, joint teams began exploring potential settlement locations, eventually identifying a planetary system at the Empire's outer reaches, close enough for Imperial oversight but distant enough to alleviate security concerns. The system, designated Novus Terra by the humans, featured 2 habitable worlds with complementary resources and ecosystem types. Imperial surveys had previously marked it as low priority for colonization due to its remote location, making it an ideal compromise. Colonel Morozova and a delegation of human leaders were eventually transported to Sanctum Prime for formal negotiations with Imperial representatives. The sight of human vessels approaching the Imperial capital created a sensation among the civilian population, with public opinion divided between excitement and apprehension. Zara, having been promoted to colonel for her role in the First Contact, found herself serving as the primary liaison between the human delegation and Imperial authorities. It was in this capacity that she witnessed the signing of the historic New Frontier Accord between Colonel Morozova and the Imperial Regent. The terms were straightforward. The humans would be granted settlement rights in the Novus Terra system in exchange for technological partnership and gradual integration into the Imperial economic sphere. Their fleet would undergo phased disarmament as planetary colonies became established, with components repurposed for civilian infrastructure. As the ceremony concluded, Zara approached Morozova, finding the human leader standing alone on an observation deck, gazing out at the spectacular vista of Sanctum Prime and the galaxy beyond. "Quite a view," Zara commented, joining her at the railing. Morozova nodded. "Breathtaking. Your empire has built something truly remarkable here, as have your people, in their own way." Zara replied, "To traverse such distances with converted civilian vessels, to maintain not just survival but civilization under such conditions. It's unprecedented in our records." "A necessity," Morozova said with the ghost of a smile. "You'll find it's a theme with us." "So I've noticed." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, two military leaders who had managed to avert conflict through understanding rather than force. "What happens now?" Zara finally asked. "For you, personally. I mean, will you lead the settlement effort?" Morozova's expression turned thoughtful. "Initially, yes, but eventually, I hope to step back. I've been a wartime leader for too long, making desperate decisions, focusing on survival above all else. Our people need to remember how to live, not just survive. That will require different leadership." "You've earned your rest, Colonel. As have you. I imagine convincing your military to accept us couldn't have been easy." Zara smiled slightly. "The Empire values strength and innovation. Once we recognize those qualities in your people, the rest was just bureaucracy." "And what about you?" Morozova asked, turning to face her directly. "What does Colonel Zarakesh do now that she's averted an interspecies conflict?" "Continue serving, I suppose. Though I admit, First Contact has changed my perspective somewhat. There's more beyond our borders than threats to be neutralized. Perhaps you'll visit Novus Terra someday. See what we build there." "I'd like that," Zara replied, surprised to realize she meant it. As the human delegation prepared to depart Sanctum Prime, returning to their fleet to begin the settlement process, a final ceremony was held in the Imperial Grand Hall. The Emperor himself, a rare public appearance, addressed the gathered dignitaries. "Today marks not an ending, but a beginning," he declared. "The integration of human innovation with imperial strength creates possibilities neither civilization could achieve alone. This is the true power of the Empire, not conquest, but incorporation of diverse strengths into our greater whole." Watching from her position among the Imperial officers, Zara reflected on how close they had come to destruction instead of cooperation. A single miscalculation, a moment of fear or pride overriding reason, could have led to tragedy rather than partnership. As the ceremony concluded, Commander Aurek approached her, now wearing the insignia of an admiral following his promotion. You look contemplative, Colonel Kesh, he observed. Just considering paths not taken, Admiral. Aurek nodded understanding. The easiest path would have been to destroy them at first contact. The military council expected it, perhaps even hoped for it, a clean solution to a complex problem. Yet you chose differently. We chose differently, he corrected her. Your insights were crucial. Remember that in your future assignments. Future assignments, sir? Aurek's expression softened slightly. You've been requested as the Imperial liaison to Novus Terra. Apparently, Colonel Morozova specifically asked for you, if you're amenable. Of course. Zara couldn't quite suppress her surprise or her interest. I would be honored. Admiral. Good. You depart in 3 days. The humans are already beginning their settlement preparations. In the days that followed, as Zara prepared for her new assignment, news of the human settlement spread throughout the Empire. Public reaction evolved from initial alarm to cautious curiosity, particularly as details of human technological innovations began to circulate. Imperial propaganda networks, quick to adapt to the changing narrative, now praised the strategic wisdom of incorporating human ingenuity into the imperial framework. What had nearly been portrayed as an invasion was reframed as a fortuitous opportunity, another triumph of imperial diplomacy. On the day of her departure for Novus Terra, Zara stood once more on the observation deck of Sanctum Prime, gazing out at the galaxy that suddenly seemed filled with new possibilities. The human fleet, no longer a mysterious armada but a collection of remarkable vessels with their own histories and purposes, waited at the designated coordinates, ready to begin their journey to their new home. As she boarded her transport, Engineer Lauren met her at the airlock, his expression barely containing his excitement. Ready for your new adventure? Colonel? Adventure. Engineer. I'm simply fulfilling my duty to the Empire. Lauren's knowing smile suggested he wasn't fooled by her professional detachment. Of course, Colonel. Though I suspect duty has never been quite so interesting before. Zara allowed herself a small smile in return. Perhaps not. As her transport pulled away from Sanctum Prime, setting course for the rendezvous with the human fleet, Zara reflected on the strange journey that had brought her to this point. What had begun as a routine border patrol had transformed into first contact with a species that might well reshape the Empire's future. The humans' desperate journey across the stars had been driven by necessity, but their encounter with the Empire represented something different, an opportunity not just for survival, but for genuine prosperity. And in that opportunity, Zara saw the reflection of the Empire's greatest strength, not its military might or technological prowess, but its capacity to adapt, to incorporate, to grow. The stars streaked past the viewport as the transport accelerated to jump velocity. Ahead lay Novus Terra and the beginning of a new chapter, not just for 12 million human refugees, but for the Empire itself. And Zara Kesh, once a dutiful border officer, now found herself at the center of history in the making. The galaxy, it seemed, was full of surprises, and that, perhaps, was the greatest lesson of all.